everyone, good afternoon. I'm Krishna Prashant, Senior Advisor at the Education USA office in Chennai. So thank you for joining us from wherever you are for today's session on post-application waiting game. Alright, so what does this mean, right? So typically you guys have applied to a couple of universities and you are still waiting on hearing from them. Maybe you would have heard from some of them and you're still waiting to hear from some of them, right? So what can you typically do during this time frame is what we will actually talk about, right, in today's session. Okay. All right, so in today's session we will probably talk about American tongue. In a little bit I'll show you what that is and some of the things that you can do while you wait for the application status, and what you can focus on while waiting, and how can you probably do some keyword search as you probably look at the university websites, and finally why are you doing this, right? Okay, so before we actually get into the American tongue, I'm going to show you a little video.
Made it through all 5 parts of the standard American accent tutorial. Welcome to the bonus. Time for some fun. I hope the whole thing's been fun. I've had fun. But this, I thought we would go through some of the regionalisms of the country. Because it's a huge country.
The two accents sound the same, even if they're from the same city. So I thought we would start with, the East Coast, like New York. And you'll definitely get more of your consonants here, a little bit harder. Your T's won't be D's so much. Just focusing on New York for a minute, you get kind of this trumpet effect. I call it the trumpet. Of course, it's like here we are and it's really crowded in the city. So you gotta make your space, announce your space. So if I say talk, the sound is going or, out. And I'm marking my territory, right? So then you go, come down south and it's a little bit different. You don't take all that and bring it home. Bring it down. Calm it down a little bit. Or you have your southern accents that are, we call it rhotic, meaning you pronounce the R at the end of the word or the sentence. So there are many different southern accents where you will pronounce the R and kind of lean on it in that charming kind of way. Or the ones where you don't pronounce the R, honey. Now in general, you don't slow down a little bit. You don't have to lean on something a little bit more. Because it's hot on down here. You don't have to accent quite fast. I'm gonna pick it up. Some we don't have consonants much, You know what I'm saying? Lots to explore. And then when you bring it up to the part of the country where the land is wide and flat, you're gonna get more of a wide flat sound to your accent up in Minnesota, Wisconsin. And so that they call that the Midwest. I don't know why. It's really the north or the middle. Maybe because at one point when it was just the East Coast, everything else was west. So you can get that up there. But in general, it's like you can just pull the rubber bands of your cheeks wide and then two, and you go from ooh to wide, and that's fun. And then, if you bring it sort of to the West Coast, and really more like to California, just get a little bit heavier, a little bit kind of louder, and just kind of here I am, Nothing to hide. I mean, I'm just here. And yeah, and then if you get really into kind of this now thing, you can even bring it up at the ends of your sentences and things like sentence. I wouldn't say sentence, I would say sentence. That's just me. I tend to articulate a little bit more than that. But you can bring this kind of West Coast thing up to Oregon and Seattle as well. Some people in Washington say Washington, but that's not kids. That would be of a particular generation, Washington. And these are total generalizations. There are infinite accents within. In fact, you get things like, your newscaster, where you have a very particular training to sound like you know what you're talking about. We vary our melody quite a lot so that people can stay attuned to what we're saying. Because if we level off what we're saying and don't vary our pitch very much, it's a lot harder to follow what we're saying, so we vary it a lot. Or you've got your flight attendant. Okay, thank you very much. Here now, if you just put your seat backs and tray tables in their upright and lock position for me, we'll get underway. Take a moment and find the exit nearest you, bearing in mind it may be behind you. Thank you. Many different regionalisms. This is just a sampling. But the more you get into some of the differences, the more you watch and practice and soak it up, you know, pause a movie or just sit there, you know, it'll help you develop your ability to mimic, to hear a sound and know what your mouth needs to do, what your body needs to do in order to recreate that sound. So it can be fun to just hear something random, wah, and go, wah, again, or Bebo, Bebo. Or different languages will help you too. Trois, trois. You know, don't just say trois. Or a velociraptor. Rah! You know, rah! So the more you practice these different things, it will help you with your American, I promise you. And then that will help you with any other accents you wish to bring in to yourself. Expanding your identity, expanding who you are to include these other things. That with this, it doesn't mean that you're not who you were before, you're just adding to that some of these other tools. Thank you. I hope you've had a wonderful time, and maybe I'll see you back here again soon. Take care. Vibes to you and all you do. We are connected.
From this video. Right, so everyone's getting prepared to go to the States, right? To different states. Some might probably want to go to the East Coast, some might want to go to the West Coast, some probably will end up going to Midwest, right? American tongue, this video we kind of wanted to show you so you can probably get acclimatized, because even though English is one language, the accent that can probably be used in different states or regions within the US could differ, right? So I'm sorry for that. I'm not sure why this just keeps jumping. Yeah. So yeah, maybe there's a timer there. All right. So so that's the video about, right? So as you get your admits and as you figure out where you want to go into, you can probably start listening to some of these videos and get used to the words, so that way you do not run into surprises when you actually land in that state or the city. Okay. For instance, shelp is a word that a lot of New Yorkers would probably use, because that word means to carry, right? We generally say carry, but in New York, shelp is a word that probably is used interchangeably for the word carry. What can be used here in India is like vessels. There it is referred to as pots and pans. We may probably say takeaway, right? Whereas there in the US, if you probably say takeaway, they probably may not really understand. It's usually referred to as to go, right? Or if you want to eat here, then it's for here or to go, right? These are some of the samples that we just thought we'll probably throw it here and here. Okay, some of the things that you can do while you wait is we've drawn up few scenarios for you to keep in mind, right? So each of you will probably find out the status from your universities that you've applied to, and what is scenario number one, right? So everybody has a dream school that you want to get into, right? So let's say you get admitted, but you get it with funding or without funding, what is that you want to do, right? Because right now you have all the time in the world that you can probably do all these permutations and combinations and think about what you really want to do, right? Let's say as you get closer to the timeline, what's going to happen is as you find out the status, you'll probably may not really have the time to even decide what you really want to do. So that's some of the reasons why we thought, okay, fine, if you received, we'll throw some of the scenarios here, like admission received at a school of your choice without funding, what do you want to do? Let's say you got an admission denied at the school of your choice, what's your backup plan, right? Do you have a backup plan? And lastly, admission received at the most secondary school of choice with or without funding, how do you want to handle that, right? There are several more scenarios, but some of these that everyone will probably run into, right? Things that you want to do while you wait. Okay, what are the other things that you can also do while you wait, right? Financial documents, because once you figure out the status of the admission, right, the school says, okay, we're glad to offer you an admission for the fall 2018 semester. What is the next thing that they're going to expect from you? Financial documentations, right? So earlier last week, we had a session on proof of finances that talked about what are the documentations that you can show to the university to prove that you have enough financial assistance to cover for your education, right? So prepare all the financial documents and have them ready, right? Usually it's the cost, it's a total cost that's going to change between universities, right? However, your financial document is going to remain the same. So you can probably check with the university and find out what kind of documents do they accept, right? Some universities may be very specific that they really do not want to see a provisional education loan letter. Instead, they would want to see only fixed deposits or savings account statement or something else that they may prefer, right? So it is essential that you start preparing all of those documents, because you're just going to prepare one document and kind of show it to all of them. One thing that you might want to keep in mind is end of the day, you will have to show that you have enough money to cover for your first year of education, right, in the States. So not all universities that you would have applied to will have the same fee. So you might want to think about it, right? How you want to get different documents, or just get one financial document with the maximum limit and then use that for all the universities, right? Familiarize yourself with the requirements for immunization, visas, financial aid and scholarship. Absolutely. Once you get your I-20, before you could actually depart, one of the things that you may be asked to do is to get your immunization record, right? So what kind of immunizations that you already have, if there's any additional immunization that you are required to take, then that's also something that you may want to figure out from the university. You can write to them once you find out you've been admitted to that university, right, of your choice. Visa procedure, how can you find out what's a visa, how do you apply for student visa? One way is we are more than happy to help. You can walk into our office or call us or write to us, where we could tell you once you get your I-20 and once you've decided the school that you want to get into, what's the next step that you have to be doing, which is typically applying for visa process, and we're more than happy to walk you through that as well. How do you find out if there are any financial aid or scholarship opportunities while you wait, right? You've already applied to that school. How do you find that out? One of the best ways that you can do is go into the university's website and try and find out if there's something that you can always that's open for you to even come there after when you join the first semester. What are the assistants that are available for you to apply, right? And learn to navigate the university website. That's absolutely important, because you should be able to find out what information is available where in the university's website, right? Predominantly every university website will have like a search box where you can probably type it, right? And whatever, be it like assistantship, financial aid, scholarship, or if you even want to find out about any course or professor, it's probably available there. One of the things that you can also keep in mind to look at is a student handbook. The university would have put together what a student would need to have in terms of preparing themselves before they could start the schooling. And identify potential faculty you could connect with and draft introductory messages. This is specifically for students who are getting ready to do their master's or PhD for that matter, right? Not at the undergraduate level largely, But if you're looking at some kind of an aid through assistantship, be it teaching assistantship or research assistantship, one way to do that is once you get admitted, then you know you're going to be going to that college or the university, and you identify the professor. And if you have an interest or a background in the field that the professor is already working on, then you could probably draft that introductory messages and start building that relationship, right? So when you actually land at that university, you put a face to your name. It makes it easier for you and the professor to connect and get the conversations going instantly, rather than just waiting to get there, then building that conversation and then using up all that time, right? If someone's interested in doing any MOOC, which is massive open online course, then you could probably also explore courses on Coursera, and there's also some on MIT OpenCourseWare, right? Preparations that need more focus, like I said, your financial documents, keep that ready, right? And extra set of attested transcripts. See, one of these things, irrespective of whichever university you would end up going to, you would definitely need to carry your original set of documents, right? And it is always essential that you make another set of copies of all your documents, right? And also do a soft copy of all of your documents, so it is handy at any point of time. You can probably keep it in Drive, your local computer, or wherever it has to be, right? And always keep your original documents in your carry-on baggage, right? So that way you're sure you don't miss that. And prepare your resume and or curriculum vitae in US format, because from whichever country you are going to be going to the US, we probably are used to a different resume format, right? That may not really apply to the US resume style. That's some of the things you can probably look it up. What does a US resume look like? Is it more of a one-pager, or what all information that goes into the resume, right? You can start preparing it, even though it might be a little too early. These are some of the things that you could do while you have the time in your hand. And once again, this talks about the keyword search. Typically, if you are trying to explore the university's website, trying to get used to it, if you're looking at financial aid or any funding options, or some might be even looking at campus housing, like, or off-campus housing, and any other student clubs or infrastructure or facilities that you are specifically looking at that university, try and look that all information up, right? I think that this brings typically to our last slide. What is really important is, I'll give you a minute to take a look at this cartoon. So there are two students who are conversing, and one's typically not sure, why am I doing this? So the reason we put this cartoon in here is, right, you're getting ready to go to the States to do whatever that you want to do, right? So you should really be passionate about what you are getting ready to do. Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense, because you're putting in a lot of time, effort, and money into it. This cartoon typically explains that, right? So that pretty much brings us to the end of our presentation today. Here are some of the ways you can get in touch with us. In 2 weeks, let's say on March 15th at 3 o'clock, same time, we have another information session that will talk about choosing between admits. So let's say you've received admits from more than a couple of universities, and you're not too sure, how do you narrow down and figure out which is the university that you want to get into, right? That information session is going to talk about, give you tips on how do you go about figuring out which university that you want to get into, right? And on the March 29th, which is again a Thursday at 3 o'clock, we have an information session that will typically give you guys an opportunity to ask every question that you wanted to ask from an Education USA advisor, right? It is open to anyone who's going in for this intake or even fall 2019 intake, right? You guys can ask any questions that ranges from an application process to how do you even prepare to go to the US, what are the things that you need to do, and everything that you need to know, right? If there are any questions, I'm more than happy to answer, be it via online or from our audience here. Any questions you guys have so far?
So this interacting with professors, does it apply to PhD alone or for MS students also?
It is, I mean, like I said, so the question is, for the benefit of the online audience, the question is, when can we start interacting with professors and who can interact with professors, right? Typically, when can you start interacting? Once you get the admit, that is when it makes it much more relevant for you to start your interaction with the professor. Who can interact with the professors? Typically those who are getting ready to pursue masters or PhD, right? It's a good way to start, because if you already receive, when you get your admit, if you receive full funding, then that makes it easier for you. Let's say there are students or applicants who do not receive funding, and you are expecting some kind of a funding or scholarship opportunities. It's good that you identify where is that money, right? Which department is it going to be coming from, right? And who's responsible for it. So typically it's a professor that's going to be responsible for the for issuing some kind of an assistance, right? So it is good that you do not really jump into asking, hey, can I have that scholarship? What do I have to do? Instead, you start building a conversation, introduce yourself, let the professor know more about who you are, what kind of background you come from, what are your strengths. That is one of the reasons why you need to have a resume in the US format ready, so you can probably start having these conversations easily, right? So typically someone at the master's or higher level could start having these conversations. Any other questions from any of you?
You're mentioning about some online courses from Coursera and MIT Open courseware. So will there be a kind of a prerequisite courses? Because I doubt if universities, I mean, when a student is switching between fields or domains, can we measure that as a prerequisite and getting a certificate from so-called website? Will that help?
Okay, so the question from our in-person audience here is, when we take a massive MOOC course, and can we use that as a prerequisite to the university that we are getting ready to attend in order to compensate for the prerequisite or substitute, whatever be it, right? Most likely not, right? Because you've already applied to that university, and the university already has your transcripts. They have already reviewed it, and they are still waiting to tell you if you're admitted or not admitted, right? These are some of the courses that you can probably take to be able to get some foundation stronger, or let's say if you're switching from mechanical engineering to computer science engineering, and these MOOC courses will actually help you as you prepare to do this transition, right? This is most likely for your internal development, but if the university is willing to accept it, you should have probably completed all of this much ahead of time and find out from the university that you're applying and figure out if they are willing to accept it, whereas you are getting ready to do these MOOCs while you have this free time right now, right? So most likely you may not really be able to get a prerequisite waiver. But one of the other recommendations that I'm going to make is, let's say you complete an online course while you wait on your admits, and then you get into that university, you can always try and have a conversation with your advisor and let him or her know that you've completed all these courses during the time after the application. Would they be willing to accept any of it as a prerequisite, right? So that's a conversation you can try and have. Most likely it may not really be acceptable, but it's still good to highlight. Any other questions? All right, if there are no other questions, thank you everyone who's joined us here personally and watching us virtually from wherever you are. I mean, like I said, March 15th, our next upcoming session is choosing between admits on Thursday, March 15th at 3 o'clock. Thank you, everyone.